Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, and we will begin shortly. Good morning, good evening. So when I registered, I'm unable to active my account. Can you please tell me how to solve it? Register where, Sivam? Good evening. Good evening, Suresh. Good evening, Sivam. So when I registered, then I'm unable to active my account. Where are you trying to activate your account, Sivam? Oh, SAP Business. Okay. Now, SAP Business you cannot activate right now. We'll talk to Deepti and Sai tomorrow, and they will help you out. So thank you all for joining the session, and we will give 2 minutes, and then we will start the session in a couple of minute time frame. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining the session. Good evening and thank you. And couple of minutes and then we'll start. One more minute and then we'll start the session. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. I need video recording. I think, is it not, these guys send it to you yet? I asked them to send it, email it them. I think they email, but sometime what happens is email and all that go to the spam. So what happens is, in the beginning, I've seen it when our folks, when our team sent class it will send email. This goes to spam. Goes to spam. So I given to you email, so you can send email to Deepti at kabeerconsulting.com, Rajendra at kabeerconsulting.com, Dilip at kabeerconsulting.com. So these are 3 emails. Send it to us. Okay. So then they know, because many times they are sending email, it goes to spam. They think they send it and you have not got it. So there is a confusion. So please make sure that when you don't have it, and send it to all of them, all the 3. So send emails to all the 3 email IDs as below. So these are the email IDs, and you can send it to these 3 email IDs. Okay, because this happens in the beginning. Yeah, email them. Spoke is fine, but when you have an email and all that, they can respond. The problem is not speaking. The problem is their email goes to spam sometimes. So because of the spam issue, this problem happens. So that is the problem. So when you receive email, please mark as safe. So that way, what will happen is, when you get an email, mark it as safe, so it doesn't hit the spam and all that, and then you know that email has arrived to you. Okay. So that is how it is. Okay. Anybody else having any questions? So anybody, any other question before we start the class? Anybody having any questions? Whatever we have discussed. So anybody having any questions? Anybody questions? So again, for the questions, there is a chat box. So there is a chat box in a GoToMeeting, and we can okay. So there is a chat box, and you can use chat box in the GoToMeeting to ask me any questions, etc. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Okay. Somebody asked a question. sir, whatever you write or explain, display later, is a cockpit is customizable. Some of them are, yes. Some of them are more or less fixed. But you can create many reports in SAP. So you can create as many reports as you want in SAP. So that is absolutely possible. Okay. I'm not receiving class recording. I told these guys, hopefully they will send it. So by today, you will get it. What are the ad hoc reports? So there are many different kind of record. Means there's ad hoc, and there is a dashboards, and there's a KPI. There is a operation report. See, when we talk about the reports, yeah. So ultimately, all reports in the world are divided into two categories. Yeah. So there are two categories. In that you divide all the reports. Now, what are those categories? One, we call it operational reports. Okay. And the second one is called analytic report. Okay. So what is the meaning of this is in operational report and analytic report? Operational report basically means the report or dashboards which you do for your day-to-day work, which you do for your day-to-day work. So for your day-to-day work, you will keep these operational reports. Then you have analytic reports. Analytic report is more used for strategic regions. Yeah. So you will have for strategic regions, for planning purposes, for forecasting purposes, for strategic purposes. Normally, these reports would be required by junior to mid-level people. And normally, the analytic report would be done by the senior management people. So senior level people would like to have, more of operational reports and strategic reports. So that is how you divide all your report, and you can create many different reports and dashboards also in SAP technically. Okay. Any other question anybody has before we start the class? So anybody else having any questions? Whatever we've done so far. Any questions? Okay. Let me briefly recap what we have done in the last two classes. So in yesterday class, what we did was we talked about the data. We discussed there is something called configuration data. We talked about organizational data. Now we'll say organizational data basically means like your warehouses. You want to define your warehouses. You want to define your different locations, your different branch. So that is what you can talk about your organization data. Then we talk about master data. In master data is the reusable data, which we talk about, like customers, vendor, items, leads, etc. That is called master data. Transactional data is what we are doing, like for example, sales orders and purchase orders, etc. Okay, like quotation and all that. So these are called transactional data. And then we have a reporting data which we use for the purpose of reporting. So that is what we have discussed yesterday. So we have and then I have also mentioned to you about the timing. Timing, I will always be in time. So that is where basically we, so I always start on the time, never delayed. We created some exercise yesterday. So we create one exercise in which we create an item master data. So that is one exercise we did yesterday. Yesterday we did another exercise related to quotation. Is a simple exercise. How do we create a quotation? How do we create a purchase quotation? So some exercise which we did, we're gonna do many times. We also talk about a lot of these transactions you can enter in the draft mode. So we discussed that as well. And then we also did some more exercises in which we create a quotation. We create a sales order with reference to quotation. We talked about document flow or the relationship map. So we did all these configuration yesterday. Okay. So let's continue where we end. So this is our starting point, and this is where we end. Yeah, availability of the software. Software will be provided after, as I mentioned yesterday, after some time. We want to see how many people are really coming. We will see the attendance, the people who are serious and attending the software. Then we'll provide the software because there are quite a few people. So we don't know who is seriously coming and all that. So what we're going to do is we will check the continuous attendance of people for next 2 weeks. So based upon the seriousness, so based on the attendance and the continuous attendance, we will know how many people are serious and all that. Then we will provide SAP software access. Also, training material you will get anyways, and videos access you will get it anyways. Latest by tomorrow. I think most of you have got it. If not, they will send it. And then there's all these issues. Okay. So that is what is this all about. Okay, let's continue. So today we're gonna talk and we're gonna discuss about purchasing. Okay. That is our agenda for today. Okay. Before that, is my voice clear to you all? Okay. Is my voice clear to you all? Okay. Very good. Thank you. Let's continue. Purchasing basics. So today we're going to talk about purchasing. Purchasing means procurement, where we are buying the material from outside. So what we're going to learn in this chapter. So in this chapter, we will learn about the basic process steps for procurement. So when you're doing the procurement cycle, what are the steps? And how can we streamline purchase procurement processes? Okay, so we will be talking about these two things in SAP. So we continue to the business example. Okay. Now, what is the business example? Your company is buying the items from external vendors. Every company has to buy. Every company has to buy some items, and that is where the procurement process come into the picture. Okay, and that is what we will be discussing and we will be talking about. Okay. Then we will also talk about how the full procurement process end-to-end is. So we'll talk about the full procurement process. This is the procurement process. So let's look at this screen. This is the end-to-end procurement process. This is not including few other steps. Okay. Now look at it here. It's a 4 process. We order the goods, then we receive the material, and then we do a good receipt against purchase order. Okay. Then we do a AP invoice or vendor invoice, and then in the last we do outgoing payment. These are the 4 steps. There are other steps also, but these are the 4 core steps of the purchasing process in SAP. We're going to do this exercise also. So we have a purchase order, let's continue go through that. So the first and foremost, talking about purchase order. Purchase order is a legal document. Yeah, purchase order is a legal document. Is a document between a buyer and seller. If you see that commitment, the important word here is a commitment. So what does that basically mean? So purchase order is a doc between buyer and seller. If I have to buy material, we need to create a purchase order. And for that, we need to create and this has legal connotation. It's a legal document. One of the important things for us to understand that this is by definition is a legal document between a buyer and seller. It has a terms, it has a conditions. AP, account payable. AP means account payable. Negotiation, there is a contract also. You can do purchase quotation, and that is where you do your negotiation. So there is a purchase quotation. AP means account payable. So AP means account payable. So purchase order is a legal document in which a buyer and seller are committed for certain terms, conditions, price, etc. That is why we will see the word here, commitment. After the purchase order, the next step we will look at is good receipt against purchase order. You create a PO, give it to the vendor, and ask vendor to supply the material. One fine morning, vendor comes and supply the material. When vendor supply the material to us, then what we do good receipt, GRPO. Now look at it here. When we're going to do this exercise. When we do a GRPO, it updates our inventory. Okay, it updates my inventory. I have 10 pieces. I purchase 20 more. My total inventory become 30. So that is a good receipt. So after purchase order, we do a good receipt. Now, after the material has been supplied by the vendor, what vendor will say? He will send his invoice. Say, okay, you ask the material, this quantity, I give it to you, this is my invoice. So we have a next step called account payable invoice. What happens in account payable invoice? You enter the vendor's amount and everything into account payable. So account payable is the process of entering vendor's invoice in our system. So vendor's invoice is entered in our system. That is called account payable invoice. Payable, because we are responsible for paying to the supplier. Last step after account payable, the last step is outgoing payment. We need to make the payment to the supplier. That is the last step. So what is it? We create a purchase order, we do a good receipt, vendor submit his invoice, we acknowledge it, and based upon invoice, we make a payment to the supplier. This is end-to-end supplying process. Okay. Now let us do this exercise. Every company has separate purchasing format. Yes, you can define as many format as you want. Layout, you can define whatever layout. So processes, purchase or format could be different. So we want to do purchasing exercise. Format means layout. You can define different layout. We discuss about that yesterday. So purchasing end-to-end cycle. What we're going to do in end-to-end cycle? So I'm going to create a purchase order. Make a note of these steps. Then I'm going to create a goods receipt against PO. That is our next step. Make a note. Then we're going to post vendor invoice. That is also called AP invoice in SAP. And after AP invoice, the next step for is payment to the vendors. And that is also called in SAP outgoing payment. So this is called outgoing payment. Okay. So that is what we do. This is outgoing payment. This is our end-to-end cycle. Please make a note. It's very important that when I'm doing exercise, all the comments I'm writing, that you guys are making note of all these different things. Okay. So that is where this is important. Okay. So please make a note of all these points. Okay. So it's easy to follow. So keep making notes. Can we do exercise? No, you don't have a system. So you cannot do it. Only I can do it. Okay, so let's create this exercise. So I log into the SAP system. I log into SAP system. This is, and then yesterday I created a material. What was that material? I want to check material. Okay, look at here that material. Look at carefully. So the material which I created yesterday was FIG001. Okay, I want to check that material first. Okay, I want to go to material, and in the material I want to check that material first. And material called FIG001. Now this is the material, and in that I have a inventory data. Now look at it here. This is a automotive component we created yesterday. In this warehouse, because this material can be there in multiple warehouse 1, warehouse 2, warehouse 3, warehouse 3, warehouse. In my company I can have many warehouses, right? Now if you check here, how much I have in stock. So I don't have anything in stock. Committed is 1. You see that? Committed is 1. Now why this is coming committed as 1? Committed is 1 because we have created a sales order yesterday. That is why committed coming as a 1. And available is -0. Okay. So let us say, before I do this exercise, I want to create a material first. I create another material. I can use existing material. I can create a new material. And let us say I call this material FIG002. This is a finished good, FG, and I call it automotive component 2. And then I go back to the unit of measure, price, sales unit, planning. This is a material, buy material, make material. And now one thing which I want to see here, look at carefully here, that for this material, automotive component, in stock nothing is there because it's a new material. So there is nothing in stock. For this material, nothing is committed. For this material, nothing is ordered. And nothing is available. Everything is blank. I save it. So we create a material, and that material is called FIG002. So this is material called FIG002. And I go back. Now I want to create a purchase order. So I want to go to create purchase order. So this is a purchase order. Now there is other transactions also. There is a purchase request, purchase quotation, and all that. So we'll talk about all of them. So we talk about purchase order for now. So this is a purchase order screen. I let us say select a vendor here, and one of the vendor I select. I put item FIG002. So this is automotive component 2, and I put some quantity here, whatever. So I put 10 pieces or whatever. So it's a simple purchase order we are creating. Then there is a price. And now if I look at the price is blank because we have not maintained the price list. So I put some price here, $200. So I put some price, $200. And then I say save. See the message in the bottom. So message in the bottom says operation completed successfully. So we created a purchase order and the PO number is 616. So we created a purchase order and that PO number is 616. So this is the PO number. After creating this PO number 616, now look at carefully in the bottom. Look at in the bottom. There is something called copy to. If I click on the copy to, and I can copy this purchase order into good receipt. So I click on the good receipt. Now this is the good receipt against purchase order. In the good receipt against purchase order, then system take my vendor acts my associate, contact person, item FIG002, quantity 10, unit price this. And I want to show you something interesting though before I go there. Pay attention. So I go to my item. So I click on this yellow button and I go to item and I go to inventory data. Now for this data, look at this screen here. Ordered quantity is 10. Now why this order quantity is 10? Order quantity is 10 because I have an order of 10 pieces. So because I have order of 10 pieces, system automatically update the ordered quantity here. So this ordered quantity of 10 pieces, which we see here, ordered quantity. In stock, nothing is in stock because we have not done any good receipt. So stock blank, nothing is there. Committed blank because there is no sales order for it. So stock blank, committed blank, ordered 10. Order 10 basically means I have an open purchase order for 10 pieces. That is the situation right now. I close that window. I come back to my good receipt and then I add and I say yes. So operation completed successfully. Now I've done the good receipt. Now what happened with the good receipt? So look at very, very careful, pay attention because a lot of these things are very important. So whatever we do, what is committed? Committed means what you have a sales order for. Can you zoom out if a sales order? No, I cannot zoom out this, unfortunately, Kranti, because this is my SAP screen. So there's a limit, I can zoom it. So either your screen, you have to do something, but because this is SAP screen, so it's more or less fixed. So I can't miss. If I have a Word and all that I can do, make sure that you're logged in with the window, make sure that you logged in with the laptop and desktop, yeah? Not with the mobile phone. So this is a good receipt we have done. Now I want to again go back to the item. So I click on this and go to item. And when I go to item, see what is going on here. What is the effect of the good receipt? Now, if you go back to the good receipt inventory data screen again, and in stock now I have a 10. Did you notice the difference? Earlier in stock was blank because there was nothing in the PO, we have not done the good receipt. It's a new item, so stock was blank. At the good receipt, my stock become 10. Ordered was 10. Now ordered was 10 basically means I have a PO for 10 pieces. With the good receipt, this PO is done because this PO is delivered. And then we have available as 10 as well. So because now I got in my stock 10 pieces. That is what happens when we have this when we do a good receipt. So that is the impact of the good receipt in the system. Okay. So there is impact of good receipt in the system. I close this. I come back to good receipt. Now what we have done, I go to relationship map now. If I go to relationship map, what we see? So recap. For this customer, Acme Associate, I create a purchase order number 616-925. This is amount $2,000. Then I did a good receipt, and this good receipt is done 621. PO, if you see here, there is a status, there is a lock, closed. If I see good receipt, this is open. So GRPO is open. Then we close it. Okay. Now, after that, look at my screen in the bottom. So in the process, what we have done. So we have created a purchase order. We have created a good receipt. Now we're going to do the next third step. This is to verify the invoice. Now, how do we verify how do we do the vendor invoice verification? Or how do we enter the vendor invoice? Look at my screen in the bottom. My cursor is in the bottom. Copy to what? Copy to AP invoice. AP invoice means vendor invoice. I click on vendor invoice. So it opens another window. It opens another window called AP invoice. In that AP invoice is copy all the things. Is copy my vendor, my item, my contact person, item number, quantity, unit price, and everything else. Okay. So it copies everything. This is my vendor invoice. This is my AP invoice. I can enter my tax code. And after that, I can add. So I can say, do you want to add? Say yes. Okay. So we have done the AP invoice. Now what we have done so far? Again, I right click here. And then in the right click, I put my relationship map. And I go to relationship map. This is what we have done. 4 steps. So here, what are the steps? Purchase order, good receipt, AP invoice, outgoing payment. Out of the 3 steps we have done. For this vendor, there's a purchase order number, good receipt, and AP invoice. Now, AP invoice is red color, yeah, because it's a due amount. You see the red color. Red color shows me this amount is due. We have not made a payment. And because we have not made a payment, therefore it is coming the red color. And AP invoice is open. So AP invoice is open. So that is what we have done so far. We close this. We close this. We close this. We close all these windows. Okay. We close all these windows. Now the next step and the last step is to do the outgoing payment. So the next step is to do outgoing payment. Now let's go to and do the outgoing payment. We want to make a payment to the vendor. For that, we have to go to banking. And here we have incoming payment, which is from customer. We're going to do later on. Then we have outgoing payment that we do for the vendors. This is outgoing payment. So this is outgoing payment. We click on it. So this is outgoing payment. I select the vendor, which we want, Acme Associate. Now for this vendor, Acme Associate, all these different invoices are pending. I go in the bottom. And this is the invoice which we've done for today. So if you see the date, it's 925. How much amount? 2080. So this invoice number 2080 is pending. And here on the right hand side, we have a payment means. So I can go to payment means. So I can do check or bank transfer, credit card, and cash. So let's say I'm doing a check. So I can put the amount 2080. And I say hit OK. Hit add. hit add, operation completed successfully. So what happened now? So we go back. So what we have done so far, I want to go to relationship map and I want to see the end-to-end cycle. I go to relationship map. This is what we have done so far. So we have created a purchase order, we created a good receipt, we create an AP invoice. Now the red color is gone, yeah, because it's paid now. And this comes the green check mark, paid. And this is outgoing payment number 101. So this is a purchase order, grossing is purchase order, vendor invoice, and outgoing payment. This is our end-to-end purchasing cycle. There are many other things. We have not done purchase quotation, contract, and many other things. But these are the 4 fundamental processes, steps. How do we do in SAP in purchasing module? Okay, that is what we are doing right now. Can I set reminder for that? Can I explain GL account on it? What? Reminder for what? Means payment reminder? Yeah, you can do payment reminder if you want. If you forget to click for any warehouse, you can configure warehouse. Okay, so this is my end-to-end purchase cycle. And that is what our first exercise for today. Now, after that, we go to the next point. Next point is the vendor. Vendor is my supplier. So what is the vendor? So vendor is supplier. Okay. So vendor is a supplier and we use supplier for all different purchasing transactions. Supplier or vendor is mandatory. You have to have a vendor or a supplier to create a purchase order. You cannot create a purchase order without a supplier. That is mandatory. So if I close this window, 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 and after that, if I go back to my business partners, if I go to business partner master data, and I can choose any master data, they're already there. We can create additional master data also. So if you go back here, these are all different vendors. So this is Acme Associate, right? If I go back to Acme Associate, can we reverse transaction? Yeah, you can. We have a lot of course, guys. We are just doing basic transactions. So calm down. We're gonna do in this PDF. We have a 618 pages. Yeah, we have only done 72. We have a lot of exercises to do. Guys, it's a long course, right? It's only 3rd class. So calm down. There are a lot of these. There are 618 pages in this PDF. We have only done 72. And then there's another PDF also, right? So another PDF is on accounting, and that has a 287 pages. So if we take the total course, is 900 pages. In 900 pages, we have only done 72 pages so far. So we have long way to go. Okay. So first focus what I'm doing right now. Can you do this? Can you do that? A lot of these things we will be doing. Okay. So focus on understanding, learning what I'm telling in that moment. Because if we do not focus on that moment, on that topic, our brain is somewhere else, then we miss this also. Yeah. We have long course, only 72 pages out of 900 pages. So we have a 99% of the course left. We have very, very basic transactions we are doing. So understand them first. Okay. Now we're coming back to the vendor masters I was talking about. So vendor is what? So make a note of it. So we talk about the vendor master. So vendor master is supplier. Okay. Vendor master is supplier. Vendor is mandatory. Make a note of it. Vendor is mandatory for a, make a note, for a purchasing transaction. Okay. So it is mandatory. So you cannot do a purchasing transaction for any of these 4 transactions which you talked about without vendor. If you're creating a PO, you need a vendor. If you are doing a GRPO, you need a vendor. If you're doing a vendor invoicing, you need a vendor. If you're making payment to a supplier, you need a vendor, because ultimately you're making a payment for a specific supplier. Okay. So vendor master is supplier, and it is a master data. It's also called master data. Why it is the master data? Because it is reusable. Remember, we talk about the term. It is reusable. We can use same vendor again and again and again, because you may be buying item from this vendor many times, right? So that is why it is called reusable. In the vendor, you can have a contact person, you have addresses, you have a payment information, accounting information. So we see here. So this is the vendor. Now look at here. So this is the vendor. Acme Associates. Telephone number, fax number, their email address, what is their website, acme.sap.com. We ship it. How do we ship it? Factoring, a lot of fields. And we're going to talk about all these different fields. Then this is the contact person. The contact person basically means if I call this vendor, who we talk to. So that is where we have a contact person. So when we call Acme Associate, we make a phone call, we are actually talking to Rena. Yeah? We have a different people. We have a Rena, we have a Sarah, we can define. Because ultimately when I'm calling Acme Associate, who I call to, I have a person, you know. So that person who we are calling is called contact person. There is addresses. You see that? Addresses. Now, pay to address, ship from address. Now, what is the basically meaning of all this is, you know? Pay to address basically means my vendor is in Chandni Chowk, right? Let's assume, where is my vendor? My vendor is in Chandni Chowk. But his factory is in Faridabad. So his office is in Chandni Chowk. His factory is in Faridabad. So pay to address, where we are sending the invoice and all that, is in Chandni Chowk. But the material, you see the ship from, the material coming from where? Let's say material is coming from the factory in the Faridabad. Okay. So that is why we can have ship from. Okay. So that is why you can define all these different addresses in the system. You have a payment means. You see that here, there's the information payment means. So how are you going to make a payment? Does this check by the cash? Do we pay by check? How do we pay it? You see that here? Payment term, 30 days, 60 days, how soon you pay. So all that information, what is the bank? Business partner bank. You see that? So that this company is a business partner in the State Bank of India, SBI Bank. Okay. So you can maintain all that information, the accounting information, payment information, addresses, contact person, and all that. Okay. This is payment run. This is house bank. This is my company bank. You see the 2 banks here. You see that business partner bank. So this bank, business partner bank basically means this is the bank of my supplier. That is called business partner bank. Then if you go to payment term, then I have a house bank. House bank basically means what is the bank of my company. So my company may also have a bank. So that house bank is the bank of my company. You have accounting information. In the accounting information, you have a certain general ledger. You see the account payable 203000. What is this basically meaning of that is? So when we're talking about accounting, we will see the account payable, and there is something called trade creditor, domestic. What is the meaning of that? So when we're talking about accounting PDF, which is our next PDF once we're done with it, we'll talk about what is account payable. This basically means it has a lot of significance to us, how you integrate to the finance. So you can define all these different master data. Okay. Then keep master data in the purchasing. So you can have a preferred vendor. So if you go back here, we can define our preferred vendor also. For this material, who is my preferred vendor? So let's say I open my item, and if you look at it here in the purchasing data, keep looking carefully. I have a preferred vendor. Preferred vendor basically means when I'm buying this item, who is my preferred? Because I might have multiple vendors, but for who is my preferred vendor? So this is where we come. Who is my preferred vendor? You see that in the item master, in the purchasing data, there is a preferred vendor. What is my manufacturing catalog number? See that manufacturing catalog number. See here, manufacturing catalog number. Many times what happens is, for many items, there is a catalog numbers. These are standard items. Lot of engineering item, mechanical engineering item, electrical engineering item, electronics engineering item, computer items, because those are the global items. Yeah. When you're buying them, there is a catalog number. So now why do I care about catalog number? Is because when you're ordering a particular hardware, then you are ordering that hardware by the catalog number. Because my material number here is, if you look at it, FI002, but this number has no meaning, because this number is of no consequence. Okay, so this number has no meaning, this number has no consequence. Now what we can do here is we can enter the manufacturing catalog number. Okay, so we can enter manufacturing catalog number. So I can order the product via manufacturing catalog number. So I say unit of measure, unit of measure. So we see here in the unit of measure, what is my unit? I'm buying in boxes, by drums, by pallets, by cartons, by units. So that is called purchase unit of measure. And then you will also see many times we need to specify item dimensions. So item dimension basically means, if you look at it, then what is the length, what is the width, what is the height, what is the volume, what is the weight. So you can define all of them. Okay. And then if you see here, there is a tax information like a GST, whether this item is enabled for GST. Tax information. You can also have a different other fields as well, and whether item active, inactive, all that. So that is what you see here on the system. Now look at this picture very, very carefully. Let's understand this slide. This slide number 74 is the very, very important slide. It's very simple concept, but very important. So in the last 3 days, if I have described one slide which is probably the most important, this slide is most important slide in last 3 days of the class. Okay. Now what does this basically mean? So here you will see inventory and accounting effects. Bookmark this page number 74. So inventory effect we saw. If you look at it at the time of purchase order, there is no financial posting. Purchase order, no financial posting. At the time of good receipt against purchase order, there is a financial posting. At the time of account payable, there is a financial posting. This is important. Look at carefully. At the time of purchase order, no financial posting. At the time good receipt against purchase order, we have financial posting. At the time of account payable, there is no account posting. There is account posting. This is also real-time integration of purchasing process with finance automatically. All these integrations happens automatically. And because of this automatic integration, people use something like SAP. What does SAP do? This is the power of SAP. Let's understand that. Let's understand these two integration points. So I close this window, keep looking at my screen. I go back to my purchasing. I go back to my purchase order. And I click on this previous record button so I can go back to my previous record. So this is the previous record. This was my purchase order number. Your voice is breaking. The rate depends upon unit of measure. Of course, it's a common sense. Yeah. Can we reverse the transaction? Yeah, some of these transactions you can change it. Yes. Your voice is breaking. Oh, can you guys hear my voice? Is my voice coming to you all? Is voice properly? Ram can hear properly. Shivam can hear properly. Gagan can hear properly. Okay. So my voice is okay to all of you, right? It's the same voice, means I'm using the same thing. Okay. So look at here in the purchase order. So in the purchase order, I right click here and I go to relationship map. This is the transaction, the last transaction which we did. At the time of good receipts, I double click on the good receipt. So I select my good receipt against purchase order. I click on it. And then I right click. And then I go to journal entry. Then I go to journal entry. When I go to journal entry, what do I see? I go to journal entry. Now we are in finance. See here, look at carefully. Journal entry. See here, my stock account is debited $2,000. So what is my account entry? So here, at the time of good receipt, stock account got debited because inventory is a value. Credit is GRIR clearing account. So that is the clearing accounts. So this is a debit. And this is the credit. That is what we see here. Stock account, allocation account. Make a note of it. If I'm going to do your mock interview, I will be asking these entries. If someone will do your interview, most likely they will ask these entries. So make a note of it. So debit, stock account. Credit, GAR, clearing account. That is what we see here. That is what we see here. My stock account, this is account number 13000. This account is debited 2000. Why debit? Because inventory came in. Because we got inventory. And because we got inventory, that is why inventory has been debited. My clearing account is credited. I close this. I close this. Then I go to AP, account payable. I double click on it. Then I click on it. Then I go to general entry. Now I'm in the account payable. I go to general entry. And if I go to general entry here, what we see? So here, I have my vendor, Acme Associates, credited. See here, my vendor, credited. My tax account, debited, because we need to pay tax. And this clearing account is debited. Make a note here in this account. So credit my vendor. Why? Because we owe money to vendor. At the end of the day, we need to make a payment to the vendor. And debit, clearing account, GRIR, clearing account, and debit, tax account. Make a note of these entries. These are the real-time entries which are happening in the system. Okay, make a note of it. Okay. This is example of the real-time integration of the purchasing process with the finance. When you become consultant tomorrow, these integration points are important. Understanding these points is important. IR means invoice receipt. It's a clearing account. It's called GR means good receipt, IR means invoice receipt. So this account get credited here and debited here. So at the end of the day, this account get nullified. So it's called clearing account. So that's why it's called, the purpose of this is clearing account, because one of the rule of accounting is one account is credited, one account is debited. Okay. So there's a credit and debit. If you have not made a note of it in your pen and paper, then please make a note, because if you get an interview tomorrow, this will be asked. If I'm going to do your mock interview, I will be asking you, because that is the primary important thing. Okay, this is the most important and primary important thing. which you will be asking. So make a note of these debit and credits, which is happening at the time. And we're going to talk more about it also. We'll discuss more about it this as well. So this is the accounting and inventory effect. Okay. Now, the next one is account payable. So at the time of account payable also, we have update into my stock and vendor account. Okay. So what is the meaning of that is? So now we go to the next step and the last step. I close this. Now I go to outgoing payment. And if I go to outgoing payment, then what happens? So this is outgoing payment. In the outgoing payment, if I make a note, again I go to general entry. So here again, my vendor, Acme Associate, is debited because I paid to make a payment to the vendor. So now vendor is debited. My bank, my HDFC bank, in this case HDFC bank, this bank is credited for $2,080. So what is happening here? So at that time here, there is a debit entry. So there is a debit entry. So there is a debit vendor and then credit the bank account. Okay. So that is what this basically means. So debit and then we credit. So debit and the credit. This is happening at the time of making payment. That is what you see here. So when you look at account payable, my vendor account, no. Okay. Now there is another thing. Okay, so that is another. Now this is what this basically means. Look at this here. So make a note of these bullet point, outgoing payment to the vendor. These are the entry. If you not make a note, then make a note of these entries. This is how in the real time, and this is important from the consultant perspective. Okay. Okay. Make a note of that. Okay. Now, are these tax entry mandatory? Yes. In most cases, government asks for tax. Yes. Unless there could be some procurement which is not taxable, that is also possible, like charity or whatever. But in most cases, there is a tax liability. Yes. Some may not be taxed too. Like if you're buying some, some kind of charity items, or you're selling to charity organizations or something. In such cases, there may not be any kind of tax. But yes, in most cases, there will be a tax. Now we go to the next point, that is a streamlined procurement process. Now, what does this basically mean? Look at this carefully. And what it says, for urgent orders, skip the purchase order and GRPO. Look at carefully. For urgent purchase order, skip the purchase order and GRPO. So we talked about there is a PO, then there is a GRPO, then there is invoice. But what happens if you have some kind of urgent items, you don't have a time for PO. And then Guru Seat guy is also, warehouse is, the guy is on leave or whatever. So how can we create and enter purchase invoice directly? So that basically means in SAP. So in SAP, not preferred though, not preferred. This is not a preferred method that you don't have a PO and you directly do invoice. So it's not preferred. That should be done on an exceptional basis. But there could be some situations where you can enter when we would like to enter account payable invoice directly without any PO or GRPO. In case of urgencies, not recommended, not preferred, should not be done, but in some cases it may be required. Okay. So how do we do that? So in that case, I can directly enter invoice also. So let's go to the directly with invoice. So we are starting directly at invoice. So we go to AP invoice. This is AP invoice. I can select the vendor I want. Any vendor, doesn't make a difference. I can select the item FIG 002. This is the item, automatic component. Okay. And like in urgency, I'm purchasing 2 items. Yeah? I can enter the price, whatever, $200. I can enter the tax code. So what I'm doing, I'm entering AP invoice directly. Okay, I'm entering AP invoice directly. And I say, in the bottom, there's an add. And I add it. Do you want to add it? Yes. Operation completed successfully. So what happened? We have posted vendor invoice directly. There was no PO. There was no receipt. If I go back and see the relationship map, there is only one step, account payable, nothing else. For this business partner, for this vendor, I have account payable, one step. Okay. Okay, we did that. Now, what is the effect of it? So here, I want to go to, first and foremost, general entry. I want to see what account entry happened now. Now, see the difference. Now here, I have a 3 account. My Acme associate, my vendor, is credited as it was before. My tax account is debited as it is before. But it now also have a 3rd account. That is a stock account. Now this stock account was happening as a GRPO, but because GRPO didn't happen, so material in fact came, the system is still due my stock account. So here, what we have done, we have posted, so we posted AP invoice without PO and GRPO. Then we verify the account posting. So what it does, it will, these are the important things. So debit, So now in this situation, it will debit your, let me first put the credit entry. So credit my vendor account. So like as we did here, you see that here, credit vendor, that happened to credit vendor account because we owe the money to the vendor. So it does that. Then it's going to debit my tax account because we need to pay tax to the government. And then we're going to debit our stock account. Stock basically means inventory because inventory came in. Inventory came in. So this is the effect which happens when we do, when we post AP invoice without PO and the GRPO. So there is a debit, there's a debit, there's a debit. So make a note of all these. Make a note of these account entries. Now, one more thing which I want to show, I close this here. Now, I want to go to my item master. So this is my item master. I want to check my inventory status. And if I check my inventory status, now in the stock, I have 12 pieces. Why 12? Because we got 10 last time and 2 now. So 10 plus 2 become 12. So if you see my inventory in the stock, it's 12 now. And the behind the scene also, if you see, there is also here something called inventory posting. If you see inventory posting, system keep track of all your inventory posting, that on this date, this is my document, in this warehouse, from this vendor, for this item, 2 pieces came in. This is called inventory posting list. And close it. So this was another exercise which we did, which is a streamline procurement process, because in this case you can do 3 steps together. So this is a summary, 4 basic steps of the procurement process. And what are those 4 steps? Purchase order, good receipt, PO, account payable, and outgoing payment. We talk about, there's a purchasing master data, there's item master data, you need to have a vendor, and we created a material also. We created a AP invoice directly as well. And we saw that what is the effect of each of these document is. Okay. So we have done all these different transactions today. Okay. What is when our job is getting done even without PO, general entry are completed when, why is the method not recommended? Oh, why this is not recommended? It's not recommended because somebody can directly create an invoicing. It's a delegation of responsibility for better control. Because if you're entering a purchase order in the real life, right? Normally purchase order and all that, creating a serious responsibility. Purchase order has to be created, and most time it also need to be appropriately approved. Purchase order in most companies are needed to be approved by designated authorities. So here, because we don't have a purchase order and good receipt, so a lot of those steps are bypassed. You can do corruption. You can do wrong things with it, because then you directly doing invoice, and we didn't do a appropriate purchasing process. We don't have a proper purchasing approvals, and nobody signed. In SAP, you also have an approval process. Because in the real world, when you send a PO, we just create a PO right now, then the PO need to be approved. There's approval process for purchase order in SAP. So you cannot just send the PO like that. So that is why this process should be avoided as much as possible. Okay, that is what this basically means. In terms of electricity bill, water bill, and other government due, is a PO or non-PO? Depends how do you want to do it. You can create a PO for that also. You can create a PO for service items as well. Okay, you can create a contract also, or you can directly post it. So there are a lot of other things. You can directly post invoices as well. So it depends upon what kind of situation we can do. We can create a PO. We can directly enter the invoice. We can create a service PO. We can create an item PO. We can even directly make a payment also. So a lot of these things depends what kind of process we want to do. There are multiple options are available. But the best option in most cases, costly item, there has to be a purchase order. This purchase order need to be approved. Then somebody buying the material and somebody doing it. That is the classical best cycle. That is what is recommended. In some cases, we can do other things also. Now we go to the next topic, which is purchasing and purchasing items. We will do whatever we can do, and then we will stop when we are done with our time. Then we'll start on Monday. Now, one thing which I want to explain to you is, so now, today is Friday, and there is no class on Saturday and Sunday. So you have 2 full days to read and practice and watch video and understand concepts. Okay, so you have 2 days to watch videos, read the material, and be ready on the Monday. As I mentioned to you, if you don't got PDF and all that, send an email to Deepthi and Sai. In the beginning, there's always this email not going to be spam and all spamming and bulk mail and all that. So you have 2 days, and these 2 days are 2 full days to be ready, and these are the 2 full days to be practiced and be ready for the class, which is on Monday. So utilize those 2 days for the class. And I mentioned to you, if you face any problem, send the email, because sometimes they may be busy, they didn't pick up or whatever. Send an email, copy me. These are 3 emails. Yeah, I mentioned to you. I give you my phone number also. So this is my phone number. This is my US number though, but you are very welcome to make a note of. You can WhatsApp me as well. I remain busy a little bit, but you can WhatsApp me whenever I get a time. I will contact you. Okay. So these are what you can do. Yeah. So you have 2 full days in between, because tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, there is no class. So read, practice, read, and go watch videos and read the material. So you understand your questions. So Monday you can ask me during class, so we can discuss all those questions also. Okay, let's continue. So purchase process, a step of purchasing item, consequences. Some of the consequences we have discussed also. So we have discussed this already. You create a purchase order. We have done it. After purchase order, we can create a guru sheet against purchase order. That also we have done it. Then we can enter the vendor invoice. We have done it. Then we can do outgoing payment and send it to the supplier. That also we have done it. So these 4 steps we have done. Okay. So these are the 4 steps we have done. You create a purchase order. You create a good receipt. we created invoice receipt, and we created outgoing payment. We have done these 4 steps. These are the end-to-end 4 steps of the process. Now, no, it may be because of your internet. It's because of your internet, Sunny. Make sure that your internet is not fluctuating and all that. So if your internet fluctuates, my voice may not be coming properly. So that may be a problem. So purchase order, we discussed that. We created purchase order today as well. And so we have done that. And then what basically means, what we are trying to do, and we have done this exercise also as well. So we discussed that also. The purchase order is a commercial document, is a legal document between a buyer and seller. There's a terms, there's a condition, there's a price, and that is why purchase order a lot of people do, because purchase order represents legal document. You can have a quantity, you have a price. We enter the price into it. Yeah. We also saw that at the time of purchase order, there is no accounting document have created. Accounting document got created at the purchase, at the time of good receipt, at the time of invoice, if invoice, at the time of outgoing payment. Okay. What is effect of good receipt? So on the finance, there is no good receipt. We saw that when we create a purchase order, in system, inventory report item appears as ordered. If you remember, when I did exercise, I went to inventory tab, and in inventory tab, there was one other tab called ordered. Now, what I mean by that, so where is that ordered? So if you go to purchase order item, if you look at the purchase order, item master, if I go to item master, when you create a purchase order, if you go to inventory data, here we have ordered. So whenever you create a PO, it updates my ordered quantity. We saw that also in our exercise. That is what is being shown here. Pieces appeared on inventory report as ordered. Okay. Address is in the purchase order. So when you get in the purchase order, so there are 2 main addresses. So in the purchase order, in the logistic tab, so I go back to the purchase order, in the last purchase order which you have created. So I can go back to the purchase order. And if you see my cursor is the previous record. And here we have a logistic tab. And here in the logistic tab, I will ship to address and pay to address. That is what we say, ship to address and pay to address. Ship to address and pay to address. Now both these 2 addresses came automatically. Now ship to address comes in as a Nehru Place, New Delhi. Pay to address is coming as Eastern Boulevard, New Delhi 1005, Delhi 5, not Delhi 6. From where they are coming from. We didn't enter it. So from where they got defaulted. So ship to address come from my company, my warehouse. So in my, I have a warehouse. So here we entered our warehouse. So this is location. Your warehouse 01. See that warehouse? If I click on the warehouse, in the warehouse I have address. Nehru Place, 2nd floor, Eastern, Great Eastern Center, zip code, city, New Delhi. And this address is maintained at the warehouse. This is my plant address. So my plant address comes as an address where I expect my vendor to ship the product to me. Then we have a pay to address, which is vendor. So when I'm sending my invoice and when I'm sending everything else, I'm going to send at this address. And this is coming from vendor master. So in this vendor 10001, that's what it says. The vendor master, I have this address, Eastern Boulevard. If I go to this vendor here, in this vendor, I have addresses. And I have 600 Eastern Boulevard. So that is how the data, this is the flow of data also. How the system takes data, how the data gets, this is the flow of the data also. And that is, remember, this is example of organization data. This is example of the master data. Organization data coming to document, purchasing document. Your master data coming to this document. So this is the flow of data. Next step which we do is a guru sheet. We did that guru sheet also, but it's a good breaking point. So this is the page number 84. So we are stopping at page 84, and we will continue from here. So next class will continue from here. Okay. So with that, thank you. समाचार समाप्त हुए हैं. समाचार समाप्त हुए हैं. News is over for today. We'll talk next week. Thank you. Thank you, Bridge, for your kind word. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Manju. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you, everyone. And good night. Yep. Thank you all. Bye, guys. Take care.